Commander Vex Thule stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The small blue planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over brown and green continents. He had seen many worlds like this one. After today, it would belong to the Zephyrian Empire, just like all the others. "Begin standard invasion protocol," he ordered his crew. The bridge hummed with quiet activity as his officers prepared the equipment they had used hundreds of times before. Vexthul pulled up the invasion manual on his personal screen. Chapter 1. Initial Contact and Surrender Demands. He had memorized every word, but he still liked to review the steps. First, they would position the fleet in clear view of the planet. Second, they would broadcast surrender terms in the native language. Third, they would demonstrate their superior firepower with precision strikes on military targets. Fourth, they would wait for the inevitable surrender. It had worked on 847 worlds. The primitive species always followed the same pattern. They would panic, then try to negotiate, then finally accept that resistance was useless. Most surrendered within 6 hours. The longest holdout had lasted 3 days. "Fleet in position, Commander," reported his tactical officer. "Excellent. Begin the broadcast." The communication array powered up, sending a signal to every radio, television, and electronic device on the planet below. Vex Thul activated his translator and began reading from the script. "People of Earth, we are the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our domain. Resistance is futile. Surrender now, and your species will be treated with appropriate consideration under Imperial law. You have 6 standard hours to respond." He closed the channel and leaned back in his command chair. Now came the boring part. They would wait for Earth's leaders to contact them, probably begging for mercy and trying to negotiate better terms. Some worlds tried to buy time by pretending their governments needed to discuss the situation. Others offered tribute or resources in exchange for independence. None of it ever worked, of course. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving multiple signals from the planet." "Already?" That was fast. "Put the main government channel through." "That's the problem, sir. There isn't one main channel. We're getting thousands of different transmissions." Vex Thul frowned. "Sort them by authority level. Find their highest-ranking officials." "I'm trying, sir, but their communication system is chaos. Some signals are coming from something called the United Nations, others from individual countries, and many more from. I think they're civilians, sir." "Civilians? Why would civilians have access to broadcast equipment?" "Their technology appears to allow widespread communication access. Should I filter out the non-governmental responses?" "No. Let me hear what their leaders are saying." Vex Thul straightened in his chair, preparing to hear the usual mix of fear and desperate bargaining. The bridge speakers crackled to life. Multiple voices in different languages flooded the channel, but the translator sorted them out. "Demand you leave our solar system immediately. This is an act of war against the sovereign nations of Earth. We will never surrender to alien invaders. Prepare to face the full might of Earth's military forces." Vex Thul blinked in confusion. "Are they refusing to surrender?" His tactical officer checked his readings. "It appears so, sir. We're also detecting increased activity at their military installations worldwide." "Impossible. They can see our fleet. They must understand they cannot win." Vex Thul consulted his manual again. This scenario wasn't covered in the standard protocols. Perhaps they need a demonstration. Target their largest military installation with a precision strike. Minimal damage, just enough to show our capabilities. "Yes, sir." The main guns charged with a low whine. On the screen, targeting data appeared. Over what the computer identified as the Pentagon, a large military complex in North America. A single beam of energy lanced down from orbit, striking the building's outer wall. The blast was carefully calculated to destroy only a small section while leaving the rest intact. "Strike complete, sir. Minimal casualties, structure integrity maintained." "Perfect. Now broadcast again and ask for their surrender." The communication officer worked at his station. "Sir, I'm reading massive activity across their communication networks. It's not surrender negotiations." "What is it, then?" "They appear to be mobilizing for war, sir." Vex Thul laughed. "War? Against us? They can't be serious." The tactical officer's voice carried a note of concern. "Sir, I'm detecting launch signatures across the planet. Multiple missiles inbound. Missiles? Vex Thule stood up quickly. How many? Thousands, sir. From every continent. All targeting our fleet. Impossible. No primitive species would dare attack after seeing our demonstration. Vex Thule stared at the tactical display as red dots representing incoming missiles filled the screen. Raise shields. All ships, defensive positions. The Zephyrian fleet's energy shields activated just as the first wave of nuclear missiles reached them. Brilliant flashes lit up space as the primitive weapons detonated against the barriers. More explosions followed, wave after wave of atomic fire washing over the alien ships. Shield status! Vex Thule shouted over the noise of impact alarms. Holding at 90%, sir. These weapons are crude but numerous. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through. A single voice came through the speakers, speaking clear English with what the translator identified as an American accent. This is General Patricia Hayes, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Consider that a warning shot. We have 10,000 more where those came from. Leave our solar system now, or we'll show you what humans do to uninvited guests. Vex Thule stared at the screen in shock. Warning shot? They just launched their entire nuclear arsenal at US. His tactical officer checked the readings again. Sir, our sensors indicate they still have significant nuclear capability remaining. That wasn't their full arsenal. This is unprecedented, Vex Thule muttered. They attacked us immediately. No negotiation, no plea for mercy, no attempt at surrender. They just started shooting. Another wave of missiles detonated against the shields. The barriers held, but Vex Thule could see the strain on his ship's power systems. Sir, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked. Vex Thule looked at the tactical display again. More missile launches were detected, and the humans were apparently preparing additional attacks. His invasion manual had no guidance for this situation. In 847 previous conquests, no species had ever responded to first contact with immediate, overwhelming violence. Sir, his officer pressed. Fall back to safe distance, Vex Thule ordered finally, beyond their missile range. Sir, are we retreating? We're reassessing the situation. Vex Thule watched Earth shrink on the screen as his fleet pulled back. Contact Imperial Command. Tell them we have encountered an anomaly. As the Zephyrian ships moved to a safer distance, Vex Thule opened his invasion manual again and began reading. Somewhere in these pages, there had to be guidance for dealing with a species that shot first and didn't bother with questions. There had to be some protocol for primitive beings who saw overwhelming force and responded with immediate attack instead of surrender. But as he read through chapter after chapter, he found nothing. The manual assumed all species would act rationally when faced with superior technology. It assumed they would weigh their chances and choose survival over futile resistance. It never considered the possibility that humans might not care about the odds. On the communications channel, another voice was broadcasting from Earth. Yeah, that's right. Keep running. And tell your friends humans don't back down from anybody. Vex Thule closed the manual and rubbed his forehead. This was going to require a completely different approach. 3 days later, Vex Thule stood in the war room aboard his flagship, studying holographic displays of Earth. His initial confidence had evaporated completely. The humans had done something no species in galactic history had ever done. They had forced a Zephyrian invasion fleet to retreat. Sir, we've received new orders from Imperial Command, his communications officer announced. What do they say? Proceed with standard punishment protocol. Quote, primitive species must learn the cost of resistance. Demonstrate Imperial might through targeted population strikes until surrender is achieved. End quote. Vex Thule nodded, grimly. He had hoped to avoid this step, but humans had left him no choice. Very well. Select 3 major population centers. Nothing too large. We want to send a message, not commit genocide. His tactical officer worked at his console. I recommend these targets, sir. New York, London, and Tokyo. Major cities with significant populations, but not critical to planetary function. Approved. Begin precision strikes. The fleet's main guns powered up again. 3 beams of energy lanced down from orbit, each one targeting a specific area within the selected cities. The strikes were carefully calculated. Enough destruction to demonstrate power, but limited to avoid killing more than a few thousand people. It was a standard tactic that had broken the will of countless species. Strikes complete, sir. Estimated casualties within acceptable parameters. Vexthul waited for the expected response. Previous species had reacted to population strikes with immediate surrender, often accompanied by desperate pleas for mercy. The communications officer monitored Earth's networks, ready to patch through the surrender negotiations. Minutes passed, then hours. Sir, we're not receiving any surrender transmissions, the communications officer reported. In fact, activity on their networks has increased dramatically. What kind of activity? It's unusual, sir. They appear to be sharing information about bomb-making techniques. Also, something called memes that mock our appearance and intelligence. Vexthul frowned. Memes? Humorous images with text, sir. This one shows your face with the caption, Alien Commander thinks 3 cities will make humans surrender. Humans had 9 cities destroyed in one war and still won. They're making jokes after we destroyed parts of their cities? Yes, sir. They're also broadcasting something called war songs and sharing videos of their historical battles. The most popular one appears to be about a place called Stalingrad. Vexthul's confusion deepened. Tactical. What's the status of their military forces? Increasing, sir. Instead of reducing their resistance, our strikes appear to have motivated them. We're detecting new military installations being constructed at an unprecedented rate. That makes no sense. Population strikes are supposed to break their morale. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Earth's governments. Finally. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was different from before. Older, with a slight accent the translator identified as British. This is Prime Minister Elizabeth Warren, speaking for the Coalition of Earth Governments. Your attack on our cities has been noted. We consider this a declaration of total war. You wanted to see what humans do when pushed? Congratulations. You're about to find out. 3. Channel closed abruptly. Sir, I'm detecting new launch signatures, the tactical officer called out. Not missiles this time. They appear to be improvised projectiles. Improvised? Crude rockets, sir. Chemical propulsion, basic guidance systems. Hundreds of them. Launched from everywhere. Military bases, farms, industrial areas, even what appear to be civilian neighborhoods. Vexthul watched the display as dots representing the incoming projectiles filled the screen. What are they firing at us? Unknown. Sir, the projectiles are too crude for detailed scanning. The first wave of improvised rockets reached the fleet's position. Most exploded harmlessly against the shields, but a few carried unexpected payloads. One detonated in a brilliant flash of light, temporarily overloading sensors on several ships. Another released what appeared to be metallic debris that scattered across space. Report! Vexthul demanded. No damage, sir, but that wasn't an attack. They were testing our defenses. The debris rocket was measuring our shield frequency. The flash was analyzing our sensor response time. You're telling me they learned about our technology by throwing junk at us? It appears so, sir. More rockets arrived over the following hours. Each wave was different, carrying various payloads that seemed designed to test different aspects of the Zephyrian fleet's capabilities. Some released clouds of metallic particles, others emitted radio signals, and a few even contained what appeared to be primitive communication devices. Sir, we're receiving a new transmission from one of their rockets, the communications officer announced. From a rocket? Yes, sir. It's unusual. The channel opened to reveal a young human male sitting in what appeared to be a cramped space filled with electronic equipment. Hey there, alien dudes, the human said cheerfully. This is Tyler from Wisconsin. I built this rocket in my garage, using parts from the hardware store. Just wanted to say thanks for the motivation. I've always wanted to build a spacecraft, and you guys gave me the perfect excuse. Oh, and tell your friends that my grandma makes better cookies than your civilization. Probably makes spaceships. Peace out! The transmission ended. Vexthul stared at the empty screen. He built a rocket in his garage? Apparently so, sir. Our analysis indicates the projectile was constructed using primitive materials and powered by chemical fuel. The human appeared to be operating it alone. One human built a rocket capable of reaching our fleet? Yes, sir. And according to our intercepted communications, thousands of others are doing the same thing. Over the next several hours, more improvised spacecraft reached the fleet's position. Some carried cameras that broadcast live video of the Zephyrian ships back to Earth. Others released balloons with handwritten messages. One particularly bold human had somehow managed to launch himself in a pressurized capsule and was now demanding to speak with their commander about settling this like civilized beings over a beer. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "I'm detecting construction activity on the planet's surface. Large scale." "What kind of construction?" "They appear to be building weapons, sir, but not conventional weapons. They're repurposing civilian infrastructure, turning radio telescopes into targeting systems, converting subway tunnels into missile silos, and modifying civilian aircraft into military platforms." Vex Thul looked at the growing displays of human activity with increasing disbelief. "They're weaponizing their entire planet?" "It appears so, sir. We're also detecting unusual chemical activity. They seem to be manufacturing explosives using agricultural fertilizer and household cleaning products." "Household products?" "Yes, sir. Their internet networks are sharing detailed instructions for creating destructive devices from common materials. A human chemistry teacher has become particularly popular for his videos on combat applications of basic chemistry." The communications officer looked up from his station. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of personal messages from individual humans. Most contain threats, but some are confusing." "Play one." A different voice came through the speakers. Female, elderly, with what the translator marked as a Southern American accent. "This is Dolores McKinney from Alabama, you alien sons of bitches. You killed some folks in New York, and that's just not acceptable. I've been making improvised explosive devices for the resistance using my late husband's fertilizer and some cleaning supplies. My grandson posted the instructions online, and now half the county is building bombs in their basements. You picked the wrong planet to mess with. Sugar. We've been fighting wars since we could throw rocks, and we're real good at it." The transmission ended. Vex Thul sat down heavily in his command chair. "How many humans live on this planet?" "Approximately 8 billion, sir." "And they're all making weapons?" "A significant percentage appear to be, sir. Our analysis suggests that human society has mobilized for total war in a manner we've never encountered." Vex Thul looked at the tactical display again. Earth was now covered with new construction, launch sites, and industrial activity. Instead of breaking human resistance, his attacks had transformed their entire civilization into a war machine. "Sir, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Vex Thul consulted his invasion manual again, but found no guidance for dealing with a species that responded to overwhelming force by becoming even more dangerous. The manual assumed logical behavior, that primitive beings would recognize futility and surrender. It never accounted for a species that got stronger when pushed harder. "Fall back to a safer distance," he ordered finally, "and contact Imperial. Command again. Tell them we need to revise our assessment of human capabilities." As the fleet retreated further from Earth, Vex Thul watched more improvised rockets climbing towards space, each one carrying messages of defiance from a species that apparently didn't understand the word surrender. Admiral Kextar arrived with the reinforcement fleet 2 weeks later, bringing 50 additional warships and the Empire's finest strategic minds. Vex Thul met him in the main conference room, where holographic displays showed the current situation around Earth. "Explain to me," Kextar said without preamble, "how a single primitive world has held off the Imperial fleet for over 2 weeks. Vex Thul gestured at the tactical display. "They don't follow any recognizable pattern of behavior, sir. Every simulation our computers run predicts easy victory, but the humans consistently do things that make no logical sense. Such as, they've launched over 10,000 improvised spacecraft at our fleet. Most are harmless, but they're gathering intelligence on our capabilities with each launch. They've also managed to jam our communications using what appears to be modified civilian radio equipment." Kextar studied the displays. "I see increased activity on the planet's surface. What are they building?" "Everything, sir. They're converting their entire industrial capacity to weapons production, but they're not building conventional weapons. They're creating devices our tactical computers can't classify." As if summoned by their conversation, the communications officer's voice echoed through the room. Sirs, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. Put it through, Kextar ordered. A human appeared on the main screen. A middle-aged man wearing what appeared to be work clothes, standing in front of a large industrial facility. This is Frank Morrison, Detroit, Michigan. I'm a car factory supervisor, but we stopped making cars last week. Now we're making what my daughter calls alien busters, basically armored vehicles with really big guns. We've built 300 so far today. My workers are pulling double shifts because, well, we don't like uninvited guests. The human paused and looked directly at the camera. Oh, and tell your computers to try simulating this. We just figured out how to make your fancy. Energy shields work backwards. The transmission ended. What does that mean? Kextar asked. Before Vexthul could answer, the tactical officer called out urgently. Sirs, I'm detecting a massive energy surge from the planet's surface. A new object appeared on the displays, a beam of energy rising from Earth toward space. But instead of attacking the fleet, it created a shimmering barrier between the planet and the alien ships. Analysis, Kextar barked. It appears to be a planetary defense grid, sir. They've somehow reversed our shield technology to create a protective barrier around their world. How is that possible? They shouldn't understand our technology. Vexthul pulled up intelligence reports on his personal screen. Our analysis suggests they used a process they call reverse engineering. Instead of studying our technology scientifically, they experiment with it. Experiment? They take pieces of our equipment and try different combinations until something works. It's completely unscientific, but somehow effective. Kextar looked incredulous. They're randomly testing our technology? Not randomly, sir. Creatively. They approach problems from directions our computers never consider. The communications officer interrupted again. Sirs, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth's governments. A new human appeared on screen. A woman in formal attire sitting at what appeared to be a large conference table surrounded by other humans. This is Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations. We've established a planetary defense grid using technology reverse engineered from your own ships. We're also pleased to announce that our best hackers have successfully infiltrated your communication networks. Kextar's eyes widened. That's impossible. Our networks use quantum encryption. The human smiled. Your quantum encryption is very sophisticated. Unfortunately for you, our hackers don't understand quantum mechanics, so they found ways around your security that your designers never imagined. What do you want? Kextar demanded. Simple. Leave our solar system and never return. In exchange, we won't upload the computer virus our people have created specifically for your ship systems. Computer virus? Our systems are incompatible with primitive software. That's what we thought too, the human replied. Then a teenager from South Korea proved us wrong. Would you like a demonstration? Before Kextar could respond, alarms began, sounding throughout the ship. The lights flickered, and several displays showed cascading errors. All systems report minor malfunctions, sir, the technical officer called out. Nothing critical, but widespread disruption across the fleet. The human on screen was still smiling. That was just a preview. The full version is much more interesting. Our programmer tells me it will make your computers play Earth music at maximum volume while displaying pictures of cats. Cats? Small, Earth mammals that humans find amusing. We thought you might enjoy learning about them. Kextar looked at Vexthul in confusion. Why cats? I don't know, sir. Human logic is incomprehensible. The transmission continued. You have 24 hours to begin withdrawing from our solar system. If you refuse, we'll demonstrate some of our other innovations. What other innovations? Kextar asked despite himself. Well, our nuclear engineers figured out how to weaponize solar radiation. Our chemists developed a gas that makes metal extremely brittle. And our biologists created a fungus that eats spaceship hull material. Oh, and the teenagers working on cyber warfare have some ideas that apparently make our military advisors very nervous. The transmission ended abruptly. Kextar turned to his staff. Analysis. How much of this is possible? The technical officer consulted his instruments. The virus attack was real, sir. Crude, but effective. As for the other claims, our computers cannot simulate their probability because human approaches to problem-solving don't follow logical patterns. Sir, the communications officer added, we're now receiving thousands of personal messages from individual humans. Most contain detailed threats involving methods of warfare that aren't in our databases. Play 1. A young human male appeared, on screen, sitting in what appeared to be a residential space filled with electronic equipment. Hey aliens, this is Marcus from MIT. I'm a computer science student, and I've been working on some code that should make your day really interesting. See, your computers are really advanced, but they're also really predictable. You guys think logically, which makes you vulnerable to illogical attacks. The human held up a device. This little gadget broadcasts random noise that mimics quantum fluctuations. Your computers will try to process it and probably have a very bad time. I've made about 1,000 of these and given them to my friends. We're calling it Project Chaos. Also, the human added, my girlfriend is a chemistry major, and she's made something that dissolves alien metal. My roommate studies physics and figured out how to overload your energy systems. And my little sister is 8 years old and somehow designed a weapon that our military wants to classify. We're not even the smart humans. We're just college students. The transmission ended. Kextar stared at the empty screen. College students? They're educational institutions, sir. Apparently, human young adults routinely develop advanced technologies as learning exercises. And the 8-year-old? Unknown, sir. Human development patterns don't match our databases. Another alarm sounded. Sir, we're detecting new launches from Earth. Multiple projectiles incoming. Missiles? No, sir. They appear to be packages. Packages? Small containers, sir. Non-threatening signatures. The packages reach the fleet and attach themselves to various ships using simple magnetic clamps. Each one began broadcasting a signal. Sir, the packages contain communication devices. We're receiving a transmission. A different human appeared. Elderly, wearing casual clothing, sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable home environment. Greetings, alien visitors. This is Professor David Chen, retired physicist. My granddaughter suggested I explain something to you, the old human. Leaned forward. You see, you've made a fundamental error in your approach to conquering Earth. You assumed we would behave rationally when faced with overwhelming force, but humans don't work that way. When you threaten us, we don't calculate odds of success. We get angry. When you attack our cities, we don't consider surrender. We innovate. When you demonstrate superior technology, we don't despair. We learn. The professor smiled kindly. You've been fighting wars against logical species for so long that you've forgotten how to deal with illogical ones. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, and we've gotten very good at it. We've had practice. The truth is, you're not fighting one species. You're fighting 8 billion individuals, each with their own ideas about how to hurt you. Some are scientists, some are soldiers, some are children with too much imagination. All of them are now focused on a single goal, making your life difficult. The transmission paused. Oh, and one more thing. Those packages we sent? They're not weapons. They're invitations. Invitations to surrender. Each package contains instructions for safely landing on Earth and requesting asylum. Several of my colleagues believe some of your crew might prefer living peacefully on our planet to continuing this war. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command staff staring at each other in stunned silence. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, we're receiving private messages from individual crew members asking about the asylum process. Grand Marshal Zekthara arrived with the Empire's most elite battle group 3 weeks later. Her reputation preceded her. She had personally conquered 12 worlds and never experienced defeat. The conference room aboard her massive dreadnought buzzed with tension as she reviewed the tactical situation. Show me everything, she commanded. Admiral Kextar activated the holographic displays. Earth appeared in the center of the room, now surrounded by a complex web of defensive installations and energy barriers. The humans have transformed their entire planet into a fortress, Grand Marshal. Our latest intelligence suggests they've weaponized everything from their weather systems to their communications networks. Impossible. Primitive species lack the technology for such integration. That's what we thought, sir. But they're not using advanced technology. They're using simple solutions in complex ways. Zekthara studied the tactical displays with growing disbelief. Explain these energy readings. They've created a planetary defense grid by linking thousands of individual power generators. Everything from solar panels to automobile engines is connected through a network they built using their existing internet infrastructure. They're powering military systems with civilian equipment? Yes, sir. They call it crowdsourced warfare. Every human household is contributing power to their defense grid. The communications officer interrupted. Grand Marshal, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. A human appeared on the main screen, a young woman standing in what appeared to be a large underground facility filled with complex machinery. This is Dr. Sarah Kim, MIT. I'm speaking on behalf of Earth's Defense Coordination Network. We know you've brought more ships, and we want to thank you. Thank us, Zekthara asked, confused. Every time you escalate, we learn something new about your technology. Your latest ships are particularly interesting, much more advanced than your previous vessels. We've learned a lot just from scanning them. The human gestured to the machinery behind her. This is our new production facility. We've been building hybrid weapons that combine human engineering with alien technology. Want to see one in action? Before Zekthara could respond, new objects appeared on the tactical display. Dozens of craft were rising from Earth's surface, but they looked unlike anything in the Imperial databases. Analysis, Zekthara barked. Unknown configurations, sir. They appeared to be human spacecraft incorporating Zephyrian technology, but modified in ways our computers cannot predict. The lead craft opened a communication channel. A human voice came through, speaking with an accent the translator couldn't identify. G'day, aliens. This is Captain Steve Rodriguez flying the first human-alien hybrid fighter. We built her using parts from your crashed scouts and some spare rocket engines we had lying around. She's not pretty, but she flies like a dream. One of the hybrid craft performed an impossible maneuver, spinning through 3 dimensions while maintaining forward velocity. Zekthara watched in amazement as the human pilot executed combat moves that should have been lethal to any organic being. How are they surviving those acceleration forces? She asked. Unknown, sir. Human physiology appears more resilient than our models predicted. The hybrid fighters began circling the Zephyrian fleet, staying just outside weapons range. More transmissions came through from individual pilots. This is Maria Santos flying Hybrid 7. Built this baby in my garage using alien tech and parts. From a motorcycle. Jake Thompson here in Hybrid 23. My dad was a mechanic, so I figured I could fix anything. Turns out alien spacecraft aren't that different from pickup trucks. Linda Chen reporting in Hybrid 46. I'm actually a high school teacher, but my students helped me design the weapon systems. Kids these days are scary smart. Zekthara stared at the tactical display. High school teachers are piloting combat spacecraft they built in garages? It appears so, sir. Human society has completely reorganized for war production. We estimate over 50% of their population is now directly involved in military activities. 50%? That's impossible to maintain. Human social structures are apparently more flexible than our models account for, sir. The communications officer looked up from his station. Grand Marshal, we're receiving a priority transmission from the planet's surface. A new human appeared, an elderly man in formal attire, standing before what appeared to be a large assembly of other humans. This is President Harrison, representing the Coalition of Earth Governments. We understand you've brought additional forces to our system, so we thought it appropriate to inform you of recent developments. The human gestured to someone off-screen. Dr. Martinez, please explain our latest innovations. A younger human stepped into view, wearing a laboratory coat and carrying what appeared to be technical documents. Thank you, Mr. President. We've successfully completed several projects that may interest our visitors. First, we've weaponized our planet's magnetic field. We can now generate electromagnetic pulses anywhere in our solar system. Alarms immediately began sounding across the Zephyrian fleet as electronic systems experienced disruption. That was just a small demonstration, Dr. Martinez continued. We've also learned to manipulate gravitational fields using modified alien technology. Watch this. Several asteroids in the outer system suddenly changed course, accelerating toward predetermined positions around Earth. We're not planning to throw rocks at you, the doctor assured them. We're creating a navigational hazard that will make approaching our planet extremely difficult for large ships. Zekthara watched the asteroid movements with growing alarm. They've weaponized celestial mechanics? It appears so, sir. They're using the entire solar system as a defensive system. Dr. Martinez wasn't finished. We've also made breakthrough discoveries in biological warfare, not diseases. We're not interested in causing unnecessary suffering. Instead, we've developed organisms that consume specific materials. The doctor held up a small container. This bacterium eats the alloy used in your ship hulls. This fungus dissolves your energy conduits, and this little virus infects your computer systems and makes them very, very slow. Additionally, the doctor continued, our children have been remarkably creative. A group of middle school students in Tokyo designed a device that makes your artificial gravity systems work in reverse. High schoolers in Sao Paulo built a machine that translates your communications into what they call internet memes. And a kindergarten class in Sweden somehow created a paint that makes your ships invisible to your own sensors. Zekthara turned to her technical staff. How is any of this possible? Unknown, sir. Human approach to problem solving appears to bypass conventional scientific methodology. The transmission continued. But our most significant achievement is this. Dr. Martinez stepped aside, revealing a large screen showing what appeared to be a star map. We've learned to communicate with other species in the galaxy. Turns out many of them have had unpleasant encounters with the Zephyrian Empire. They're very interested in our resistance techniques. The star map showed dozens of systems, with communication lines connecting them to Earth. The Altarians want to know how we built electromagnetic weapons from household appliances. The Centauri Federation is fascinated by our improvised spacecraft designs, and the Vegan Republic has requested detailed plans for our viral warfare programs. Dr. Martinez smiled pleasantly. We're sharing everything freely. Human policy has always been that knowledge should be available to everyone who needs it. Zekthara felt a chill run through her. They're teaching our enemies how to fight us? It appears so, sir. Human communication networks have expanded beyond their solar system. They're broadcasting resistance techniques to every species willing to listen. The transmission wasn't over. President Harrison stepped forward again. We've also been studying your invasion records. Apparently, you've conquered 847 worlds using the same tactics every time. Very predictable. We've shared those patterns with our new allies, along with countermeasures we've developed. But here's what concerns us most, the president continued. You treat conquered species as resources to be exploited. That's unacceptable to human moral standards, so we've decided to do something about it. A new display appeared on the screen, showing what looked like construction projects throughout Earth's solar system. We're building a liberation fleet, ships designed specifically to free worlds under Zephyrian control. Each vessel incorporates the best human engineering with reverse-engineered alien technology and input from species you've oppressed. Zekthara stared at the construction sites. In disbelief, massive shipyards had appeared around Earth's moon, asteroid mining operations were feeding raw materials to the projects, and thousands of spacecraft were in various stages of completion. How long have they been building this? She asked. Based on construction rates, approximately 2 weeks, sir. 2 weeks? Impossible. Human industrial capacity appears to scale exponentially when motivated, sir. They've converted their entire civilization to war production. The president's voice drew their attention back to the transmission. Our first liberation mission launches in 72 hours. Target, the Proxima system, where you're currently enslaving the native population. We estimate it will take us 6 months to free all 847 worlds you've conquered. 6 months later, Emperor Vexcalar himself arrived at Earth aboard the Imperial flagship, accompanied by the largest fleet in Zephyrian history. The war had spiraled beyond anyone's expectations. Human liberation forces had freed 17 Imperial colonies, 3 more species had joined the resistance, and Zephyrian authority was crumbling across multiple sectors. Standing in his private chambers aboard the massive dreadnought, the Emperor reviewed reports that painted an increasingly desperate picture. The humans hadn't just defeated his forces, they had inspired a galactic revolution. Your Imperial Majesty, his aide announced, the human delegation has agreed to meet. Delegation? I thought I was negotiating with their military leaders. The situation is complex, Your Majesty. The humans don't appear to have a traditional command structure. The Emperor entered the main conference room, expecting to face hardened military commanders. Instead, he found himself looking at the strangest negotiating team in galactic history. An elderly woman in casual clothing sat at the head of the table, knitting what appeared to be a small garment. Beside her was a middle-aged man in work clothes, a young woman with brightly colored hair typing on a primitive computer, and a child who couldn't be more than 12 years old drawing pictures on paper. "Where are your generals?" the Emperor asked. The elderly woman looked up from her knitting. "Oh, they're busy liberating your colonies, dear. I'm Margaret Henderson from Iowa. This is Frank from Detroit, Sarah from MIT, and little Tommy from Nebraska. You sent civilians to negotiate with the Emperor of the Galaxy? Well," Margaret said cheerfully, "you did attack our planet. We figured you'd want to talk to the people you were trying to conquer." The man named Frank leaned forward. "Your Majesty, we need to discuss the elephant in the room." "Elephant?" Figure of speech. "The point is, this war isn't going well for you." The Emperor bristled. "The Zephyrian Empire has never been defeated." "There's a first time for everything," the young woman said without looking up from her computer. "Sarah Kim, by the way. I designed the computer virus that's currently running through your fleet systems." "What virus?" "The one that's been slowly copying all your technical specifications and sending them to our engineers." "We've learned everything about your technology over the past 6 months." The Emperor turned to his aide in alarm. "Is this true?" "We've detected minor system irregularities, Your Majesty, but nothing critical." Sarah finally looked up, smiling. "That's the beauty of human programming. We don't break your systems, we just borrow information from them. Your computers never realize they're being hacked because we're not doing anything they consider harmful." The child named Tommy held up his drawing. "I drew your spaceship. It's really big, but not very pretty. Our ships are much cooler looking." "A child is critiquing Imperial naval architecture?" the Emperor asked incredulously. Margaret patted Tommy on the head. "Tommy designed some of our most effective weapons. Children see problems differently than adults. Very useful in warfare." "What does a child know about warfare?" Tommy looked up from his drawing. "I know you're not very good at it. You use the same strategy every time, and you give up when things get hard. Humans never give up." The Emperor stared at the boy. "You're analyzing military strategy?" "It's not hard. You attack, people surrender, you take their stuff. But that only works if people care more about staying alive than staying free. Humans care more about freedom." Frank nodded approvingly. "Kid's got a point. You've been conquering species that value survival over independence. Humans are wired differently." "How so?" Margaret set down her knitting. "We've been fighting for thousands of years, dear. Wars against nature, wars against each other, wars against anyone who tries to tell us what to do. It's made us very good at it. And very stubborn," Sarah added. "The more you push us, the harder we push back. Basic human psychology." The Emperor looked around the room, trying to process what he was hearing. "You're telling me your entire species is psychologically incapable of surrender?" "Not incapable," Frank corrected. "Unwilling. There's a difference." "We surrender when it makes sense," Margaret explained. "When the cost of fighting exceeds the value of what we're protecting. But you attacked our home. You can't threaten something more valuable than that." Tommy held up another drawing, this one showing stick figures with weapons. "Plus, fighting you has been really fun. We've learned lots of new things." "Fun?" "Humans enjoy challenges," Sarah explained. "Solving problems, building things, overcoming obstacles. You gave us the ultimate engineering challenge, how to defeat a technologically superior enemy. We've been having a great time." The Emperor felt a headache forming. "You're treating galactic warfare as entertainment?" "Not entertainment," Frank said. "Education. We've learned more about advanced technology in 6 months than we might have in decades of peaceful development." "And we've made lots of new friends," Margaret added. "All those species you conquered are lovely people, very grateful for liberation." The Emperor's aide whispered urgent updates in his ear. 3 more colonies had fallen to human liberation forces while they had been talking. The resistance was spreading faster than Imperial forces could respond. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked finally. "Simple," Margaret said, resuming her knitting. "Leave Earth alone. Free all the species you've conquered. Stop being bullies. The Empire cannot simply abandon centuries of expansion." "Sure you can," Tommy said cheerfully. "Just go home and leave everyone alone. And if we refuse," Sarah looked up from her computer again, "then we'll continue doing what we've been doing, freeing your colonies, teaching resistance techniques to oppressed species." and generally making your empire ungovernable. You cannot defeat the combined might of the Imperial fleet. Frank laughed. Your Majesty, we're not trying to defeat your fleet. We're making it irrelevant. What do you mean? Every species you've conquered is learning human resistance techniques. Soon, you won't be able to maintain control anywhere. Your empire will collapse from within. Margaret nodded sagely. Empires built on fear only work when people are more afraid of you than they are angry at you. You've made a lot of people very angry. The Emperor looked at his tactical displays, showing the deteriorating situation across Imperial space. Rebellions were breaking out on dozens of worlds. Trade routes were being disrupted. Several outer systems had declared independence. How do I know you'll honor any agreement we make? Because humans keep their word, Tommy said seriously. When we promise something, we mean it. Our reputation matters to us, Sarah added. We're planning to be part of the galactic community for a long time. We want people to trust us. The Emperor studied these strange humans who had brought the galaxy's greatest empire to its knees. An elderly woman knitting baby clothes, a factory worker, a young programmer, and a child with crayons. They looked completely harmless, but they represented the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. What assurance do I have that humans won't become conquerors themselves? Margaret looked up from her knitting with surprise. Why would we want to conquer anyone? We have our own planet to take care of. But you've demonstrated the ability to defeat advanced civilizations. Defending ourselves is different from attacking others, Frank explained. We fought you because you invaded our home. We're not interested in invading anyone else's. Plus, Tommy added, conquering people is mean. We don't like being mean, unless someone is mean to us first. The Emperor realized he was facing something unprecedented in galactic history, a species with the power to conquer but no desire to do so. They were dangerous only when threatened, creative only when challenged, and united only when attacked. Very well, he said finally. What are your terms? Margaret smiled warmly. Oh, we're not making terms, dear. We're making friends. Would you like some coffee? Frank brought some from Earth. It's quite good. As the Emperor found himself sitting down to coffee with the strangest diplomatic team in galactic history, he realized that humans had done something no conquered species had ever managed. They had made the Zephyrian Empire irrelevant simply by refusing to be conquered. 6 months later, the last Imperial garrison withdrew from occupied territory. The galaxy entered a new era of independence and cooperation, guided by principles that seemed absurd to traditional military thinking, but worked perfectly in practice. And in a small town in Iowa, Margaret Henderson finished knitting a baby blanket, while watching news reports of former Imperial colonies declaring their freedom. She smiled contentedly, picked up her needles, and started working on another project. After all, there were always more people who needed help, and humans were very good at helping.